Chapter 6. One September day in 1910, a few years after the family business had been handed over to young Roscoe Button, Benjamin Button went to Harvard College as a freshman. He looked about 20 and he did not make the mistake of announcing his correct age, and he didn't mention the fact that his son had been graduated from the same institution 10 years before. He was admitted and immediately attained a prominent position in the class, partly because he seemed a little older than the other freshmen, whose average age was about 18. In his first year, the Harvard team played against Yale. In that game, Benjamin played the best football that anyone could remember. Because of this, soon he was the most celebrated man in college. But in his junior year, he wasn't always on the team. He weighed less and he seemed shorter than before. He wasn't playing as well as in his first year. He was retained on the team chiefly in hope that his enormous reputation would bring terror and disorganization to the Yale team. In his senior year, Benjamin didn't play on the team. He was much smaller and thinner. Some first-year students thought that he too was a freshman. At the same time, his studies seemed harder to him. He felt that they were too advanced. He felt that the other students in his class were older and much wiser than he was. Benjamin had heard his classmates speak of St. Midas, the famous preparatory school at which so many of them had prepared for college. He determined after his graduation to enter himself at St. Midas, where the life among boys his own size would be more congenial to him. In 1914, Benjamin returned to Baltimore from college. Hildegard was now residing in Italy, so he went to live with his son Roscoe and his wife. They tried to be welcoming, he could see that, but it was clear that Roscoe didn't really want his father there. Roscoe, now a successful businessman, had an important position in Baltimore society that he wanted to protect. Benjamin understood this, but he felt a little sad. Benjamin was bored at home and he had no friends now in Baltimore. All girlfriends from his dancing days weren't interested in him. The tennis players from before his time at Harvard stayed away. They thought he was only a boy. There were only 3 or 4 15-year-old boys living in the neighborhood, and he spent time with them. The idea of going to St. Midas School recurred to him. He said Roscoe about it one day. "I'd really like to go there," he said. "Then go," replied Roscoe. The matter was distasteful to him, and he wished to avoid a discussion. "I can't go alone," said Benjamin. "You'll have to take me." "I don't have time," Roscoe told him. He narrowed his eyes and looked uneasily at his father. "As a matter of fact, you can't go on like this. You must stop it. This isn't a joke now." Benjamin was almost crying. "And another thing," Roscoe continued, "when visitors are in the house, I want you to call me Uncle. Not Roscoe, but Uncle. Do you understand? It seems absurd for a boy of 15 to call me by my first name. Perhaps you'd better call me Uncle all the time, so you'll get used to it." Roscoe turned away and walked out of the room. Benjamin went dismally upstairs and looked at himself in the mirror. "I haven't shaved for 3 months," he thought, "but there's still nothing there." Roscoe wanted him to wear glasses. He also suggested a beard to stick onto Benjamin's face. It seemed for a moment that the crazy days of his past were to be repeated, but Benjamin wept, and Roscoe had reluctantly relented. In his room, Benjamin opened a book of boys' stories, but he only read a little because he was thinking persistently about other things. American soldiers were fighting in the First World War in Europe, and Benjamin wanted to join them. But 16 was the minimum age, and he did not look that old. His true age was 57. It would have disqualified him anyway. But the government wanted soldiers from the Spanish-American War to fight again. They wrote to all these men, and soon a letter arrived for Benjamin. Benjamin tore it open eagerly and read the enclosure with delight. It informed him that many reserve officers who had served in the Spanish-American War were being called back into service with a higher rank. Benjamin hurried into town. Because he was so small he couldn't buy the uniform ready-made. He needed one to be made to his size. The sales clerk in the store measured him. "Do you want to play soldier, son?" asked the clerk. "I'm not playing," replied Benjamin. "This uniform must be correct." The man laughed at him and Benjamin became angry. "My name's Benjamin Button and I live on Mount Vernon Place," he said, "so you know I can pay for it." "Well," said the clerk hesitantly, "if you can't pay for it, your father can." A week later, Benjamin's uniform arrived at the house. He said nothing to Roscoe about his plans, but one night in April he left the house and proceeded by train to Camp Mosby in South Carolina, where he was to command an infantry brigade. He approached the entrance to the camp, paid off the taxicab which had brought him from the station, and turned to the sentry on guard. "Get someone to take my luggage," Benjamin said briskly, "and hurry, we're at war, soldier." "Where are you going with the General Dudd's boy?" asked the sentry, smiling. Some other soldiers arrived to watch. Then an officer came along on his horse. He was a kind man. "Whose little boy are you?" he asked, with a smile in his eyes. "I'll soon show you whose little boy I am," retorted Benjamin in a ferocious voice. "Get down off that horse." And he thrust the letter toward the officer. "Here, read this." The officer read it, his eyes popping from their sockets. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "I got it from the government. You can check with them," Benjamin replied. The officer put the letter in his pocket. "You come along with me," he said to Benjamin with a peculiar look. "We'll talk about this." He turned and began walking his horse toward the office buildings. Benjamin followed behind him on foot. Everyone thought that the letter really belonged to Benjamin's father. Nobody believed Benjamin's story. 2 days later, Roscoe arrived from Baltimore and took Benjamin back home. Benjamin left in tears, without his uniform.